She had always been the quiet one, the student who never made a sound in the bustling hallways of the school. She walked slowly, her books pressed to her chest, never daring to catch anyone's eye. Teachers often assumed she lacked confidence, sometimes even talent. In music class, she would sit in the corner, her fingers lightly brushing the keys of the piano, barely making a sound. No one really noticed her. She did not complain, she did not demand attention, and she did not join in the loud laughter or gossip that echoed through the classrooms. The school was abuzz one Monday morning when the principal announced the upcoming talent showcase. Students whispered excitedly, planning who would participate and what they would perform. Some were eager to show off their singing skills, others their dancing, and a few were planning skits. The girl, however, felt a quiet curiosity stir inside her. She had always loved the piano. It had been her secret world, the one place where she could escape and feel alive. But she never thought anyone would understand her music, let alone expect her to perform in front of hundreds of people. Her music teacher, a kind but practical woman, noticed her lingering near the piano after class. With a smile, she asked in a teasing voice if the girl wanted to join the talent showcase. The classroom erupted in laughter from the back benches, and a few teachers exchanged amused looks. Everyone assumed it was a joke. No one could picture the quiet student standing in front of the school, performing a complex piece on the piano. Her classmates snickered quietly, whispering to one another, convinced they would get a good laugh at her expense. The girl did not smile, nor did she look embarrassed. Instead, she simply nodded. There was a calm determination in her eyes that no one had seen before. The music teacher raised her eyebrows, a hint of surprise flickering across her face. Most of the teachers thought she would change her mind, but she did not. She signed up for the performance without another word. That simple gesture, quiet as it was, sent a ripple of curiosity and disbelief through the staff room and the classroom halls. After signing up, the girl began to prepare in her own way. She was not one to practice in the noisy, crowded spaces where other students often rehearsed. Instead, she found an old, slightly worn piano in a secluded corner of the auditorium. The keys were uneven, some sticky, some chipped, but it was hers alone. She would spend hours after school there, her fingers moving gracefully across the keys. Each note seemed to speak directly from her heart, carrying the emotions she could not put into words. Teachers walked by from time to time, but she paid them no attention. They had long forgotten her presence, and she preferred it that way. Word of her decision to perform began to spread. Students who barely knew her started whispering in the hallways, "Can you believe she's going to play in front of everyone?" One would say, "Does she even know how to play?" Another would ask. Teachers, too, found themselves quietly speculating. Some chuckled behind their hands, imagining the small, shy girl attempting a song and faltering on stage. It was easy to underestimate someone so quiet. That had always been her advantage and her curse. She could disappear into the background whenever she wanted, and yet, now, she had stepped into the light. Even if no one yet realized the depth of her talent, she did not speak much about her plans. She did not need to. The piano was her voice, and she allowed it to express what she could not say aloud. Late afternoons in the empty auditorium became her sanctuary. The janitor, an older man who occasionally passed by, noticed her dedication. He watched as she adjusted the bench, straightened her posture, and let her fingers glide over the keys. There was a focus in her eyes, a quiet intensity that made him stop in his tracks. Yet he said nothing. Some things were better witnessed silently, he thought, even among students. Few understood what was happening. Those who had overheard the whispers about her talent often assumed she had learned some simple song, enough to get through the performance without embarrassment. They did not imagine the countless hours she had spent perfecting each piece, learning every note by heart, feeling every chord resonate within her. She was preparing not to show off, but to share a part of herself that had always remained hidden. As the talent showcase approached, the tension in the school grew. Posters went up, schedules were announced, and students rehearsed loudly and openly. The girl continued to practice in her quiet corner, unnoticed. Teachers began to make small bets, some whispering about how long it would take for her to panic on stage, or whether she would play a simple, forgettable tune. The school had seen many performances, and in their minds, this shy student did not stand a chance. Yet there was a strange air about her, a calm confidence that could not be measured by appearances. Even in the hallways, her classmates began to notice something different in her posture, in the way she carried herself. She seemed unaffected by the whispers and laughter. There was a quiet strength in her that was hard to ignore, even if no one fully understood it yet. On the day of the showcase, the auditorium was filled with students, teachers, and parents. The chatter and laughter were loud, and the energy was high. The girl waited backstage, her hands resting gently on her knees. She took a few deep breaths, feeling the rhythm of her own heartbeat. This was the moment she had prepared for. Though she did not know exactly what would happen once she was on stage, she only knew that she would let the music speak for her. Teachers in the front row exchanged amused glances as she walked onto the stage. Her small figure, carrying nothing but a calm presence, seemed almost fragile against the grand piano. Some stifled laughter, certain that the quiet girl would provide entertainment of an entirely unexpected kind. Little did they know, the room was about to change forever from the moment her fingers touched the keys. The day after she signed up for the talent showcase, whispers started to spread throughout the school like wildfire. Students who had rarely noticed her before suddenly found themselves talking about the quiet girl who had the courage to perform. Some laughed quietly, imagining what might happen when she sat at the piano in front of the entire school. Others were curious, wondering what kind of music she could possibly play. Teachers, too, exchanged small, amused glances in the staff room. One teacher whispered to another that she would probably play a simple tune and stumble halfway through. They thought they had the whole situation figured out. Despite all the whispers, the girl remained calm. She went about her day like she always did, moving quietly from class to class, carrying her books close to her chest. Her mind, however, was filled with music. She thought about the pieces she had been practicing alone for months, about the melodies that had become a part of her every day. The piano was her refuge, her secret, and now she had to share it with the world. She felt a quiet nervousness, but she also felt a spark of excitement. For the first time, she was going to let people hear the music that lived in her heart. After school, she made her way to the old piano in the auditorium. It sat in the corner, worn and slightly chipped, but to her it was perfect. She ran her fingers lightly across the keys, feeling the familiar textures under her touch. The sound was not perfect, but it was hers. She began to play, letting the notes flow naturally, each one carrying her emotions. Hours passed, but she did not notice. The music absorbed her completely. Every chord, every note, was a story she had been holding inside for years. Occasionally, someone would pass by. The janitor noticed her often, but he said nothing, preferring to watch quietly. Teachers would sometimes walk through the empty auditorium, and their footsteps echoed across the wooden floor. Most did not pay her much attention, assuming she was just another student passing time. Yet, her music lingered in the air, faint but powerful, and those few who did hear it found themselves pausing, listening, and feeling something they could not describe. The other students, meanwhile, were preparing for the showcase in their own ways. Some practiced loudly in the music room, shouting and laughing as they made mistakes. Some formed groups to perform dances and skits, but she remained separate from all of it. She did not need an audience, and she did not need anyone's approval. Her preparation was private, sacred, and intense. The whispers about her talent continued to grow, and she noticed some curious glances from her classmates. Some seemed to be genuinely interested, while others still smirked, ready to mock if things went wrong. As the day of the showcase drew closer, teachers began to talk more openly about the girl's performance. Some doubted her, some were amused, and a few quietly wondered if there was more to her than met the eye. They had all underestimated her for so long. She had always been quiet, always kept to herself, and they had assumed that meant she was ordinary. But now, there was a sense of mystery surrounding her. No one knew exactly what she was capable of, and that made her all the more intriguing. At home, she practiced even more. She could not bring herself to play loudly where anyone might overhear, so she used a small keyboard she had saved up for. She would sit for hours, sometimes forgetting to eat, sometimes losing track of time entirely. Her fingers moved quickly and confidently, but her mind was always aware of the feeling behind each note. Music was not just sound, it was emotion, it was memory, it was everything she had never said aloud. And now, she was preparing to give all of that to the audience. Even though they had never seen this side of her before, her classmates noticed changes, too. The whispers turned into small conversations. Some students said quietly that she might surprise everyone. Others still laughed, imagining her freezing on stage. But a few of them watched her from a distance, curious about what she was hiding. She never played for anyone except herself, but somehow they could sense that there was something different about her music. It was not just skill, it was passion, a quiet fire that refused to be ignored. The music teacher, who had first encouraged her to participate, began to watch her more closely. She saw how focused the girl was, how her fingers moved with precision and emotion. There was no hesitancy, no doubt, only determination and a love for the music that shone through every note. The teacher began to realize that this performance might not be what she had imagined at all. Maybe the quiet girl was capable of far more than anyone had guessed. Even the janitor, who had seen her countless times, felt a quiet sense of anticipation. He had watched her practice for months, and each time, he was amazed by her progress. The dedication, the concentration, the sheer love for the piano. It was impossible to ignore. He had long known she was special, but he also knew that the rest of the school had no idea what was coming. As the evening of the showcase approached, the tension in the school grew. Students prepared their costumes, rehearsed their lines, and polished their performances. The girl, meanwhile, focused on the music. She did not practice for the applause or the attention. She practiced for herself, for the music, and for the moment when she would finally let it speak. She felt nervous, yes, but it was a quiet, controlled nervousness. She had spent years preparing for this without anyone even noticing. The day before the showcase, she spent hours in the auditorium. She sat at the old piano, her fingers gliding over the keys, each note resonating with emotion. Teachers walked by, some glancing curiously, others dismissing her presence. Students peeked in, whispering about how much time she was spending alone. But she did not care. This was her moment, and she would meet it in her own way. That night, as she walked home, she felt a mix of excitement and calm. The anticipation of performing in front of the school was almost overwhelming, but she trusted herself and her music. She had prepared silently, without expectation, without praise, and without fear. She knew that when the moment came, she would play not for anyone else, but for herself and the music she loved so much. And so, the whispers continued, the curiosity grew, and the tension built. No one could predict what would happen when she finally sat at the piano in front of the school. Some doubted her, some were curious, and some had already dismissed her as a timid, ordinary student. But all of them were about to witness something they would never forget. The day of the talent showcase arrived, and the school was buzzing with energy. The auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and parents, all eager to see the performances. The chatter was loud, laughter echoing from every corner, and the excitement made the room feel alive. Backstage, performers adjusted their costumes, rehearsed lines, and whispered encouragement to one another. The air was thick with anticipation, but the girl stood quietly, her eyes focused, her hands resting gently on her knees. She was calm, despite the crowd and the noise. Inside, her heart beat steadily, and she felt a quiet readiness that no one could see. As the first performers went on stage, the audience clapped politely, some more enthusiastically than others. There were singers, dancers, and groups performing skits. Each act brought a wave of applause and laughter, and the atmosphere grew more energetic with every performance. The girl watched from backstage, taking in the reactions of the audience, feeling a mixture of nervousness and calm. She knew that when it was her turn, all eyes would be on her, and the quiet world she had created for herself would finally be exposed. When the music teacher announced her name, there was a ripple of surprise among the audience. Some teachers whispered, trying to hide their amusement, certain that the quiet girl would falter on stage. Some students snickered, others exchanged curious glances, unsure of what to expect. She walked onto the stage slowly, her steps measured and calm. She did not rush, she did not fidget, and she did not look around. Her eyes were focused on the piano, as if it were the only thing that mattered. The teachers in the front row exchanged small smirks, confident that the audience was about to witness something awkward and endearing. They had underestimated her, and they were certain it would be entertaining, at least for a moment. Some students whispered among themselves, some laughing quietly, imagining how the timid girl would attempt a song she had never performed in public. The tension backstage and on stage was palpable, yet she remained composed, her calm presence commanding a quiet attention that was easy to miss. She approached the piano, her fingers lightly brushing the keys. The old instrument, slightly worn and uneven, waited patiently for her touch. She adjusted the bench, straightened her posture, and took a deep breath. The audience leaned forward unconsciously, sensing that something was about to happen, though they could not yet know what. Her hands hovered above the keys for a moment, and in that silence, The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Then she pressed the first key, and the sound filled the auditorium. It was a single, clear note, rich and controlled, resonating in a way that made the room pause. Teachers who had been smirking moments before froze, their expressions shifting from amusement to disbelief. Students who had been whispering stopped mid-conversation, their eyes widening in surprise. The janitor, watching from the back, felt a quiet smile form as he recognized the depth of talent before him. The note was simple, but it carried emotion, precision, and a maturity that no one expected from such a quiet student. She continued to play, each note flowing naturally into the next. The piece she performed was complex, demanding both technical skill and emotional depth. Her fingers moved gracefully across the keys, striking chords with confidence and sensitivity. The music was alive, speaking directly to the hearts of everyone in the room. The laughter and chatter that had filled the auditorium moments before faded into silence, replaced by the pure sound of her piano. Each note was a story, each chord a confession, and the audience found themselves drawn into her world. Teachers who had doubted her could not hide their astonishment. Some leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide, unable to look away. Others whispered quietly to one another, acknowledging that they had been completely wrong about her abilities. Even students who had mocked her earlier felt a mix of awe and embarrassment. They had assumed she would fail or stumble, but she was performing with a skill and passion that left everyone speechless. The quiet girl they had ignored for so long had revealed a talent that could not be denied. The audience was captivated. Parents leaned forward, trying to catch every detail of her performance. Students sat motionless, their mouths slightly open, as if afraid to break the spell that had been cast over the room. Each note she played was intentional, filled with emotion and subtle nuances that made the piece come alive. The way she transitioned between chords, the gentle pauses, the crescendos and decrescendos, all of it was executed flawlessly. It was clear that she had spent countless hours perfecting every detail, practicing in secret for a moment like this. As she played, the auditorium seemed to transform. The old, worn piano became a conduit for something larger, something beyond the room itself. The music filled every corner, touching the hearts of everyone present. Teachers who had once chuckled were now leaning forward, mesmerized. Students who had whispered doubts were now sitting in silence, listening intently. Even those who had never cared much for music felt the power of her performance. It was not just skill that captivated them, it was the emotion, the authenticity, and the courage to perform despite being underestimated for so long. Backstage, other performers watched with a mixture of admiration and surprise. They had prepared extensively for the showcase, but the quiet girl had turned the event into something extraordinary. The energy in the room shifted, and for the first time, everyone realized that talent could appear where it was least expected. The girl's calm demeanor, her focus, and her dedication had allowed her to create a moment that was unforgettable. When she finally reached the last notes of her piece, the auditorium remained silent for a heartbeat. Then, as if waking from a shared trance, the audience erupted into applause. Hands clapped, feet stomped, and cheers filled the room. Some teachers even rose to their feet, unable to contain their astonishment. Students jumped up, some cheering loudly, some with tears in their eyes. Parents clapped enthusiastically, proud and amazed at what they had just witnessed. The quiet girl, who had been overlooked and underestimated for so long, had completely changed the atmosphere of the school with her music. She stood quietly, her hands resting on the keys, letting the applause wash over her. There was no need for words, no need for explanation. The music had spoken for her, and it had been heard clearly by everyone. The teachers who had laughed, the students who had whispered doubts, and the audience that had quietly watched, all of them now understood that she was far more talented than anyone had imagined. As she walked off stage, there was a sense of pride in her step. She had faced her fears, she had shared her gift, and she had done so with grace and confidence. Backstage, other performers congratulated her, some with wide-eyed admiration, some with a newfound respect. She smiled quietly, grateful for their acknowledgement, but her satisfaction came from the music itself, not the applause. The moment had passed, but its impact would remain. The quiet girl who had always been overlooked had revealed a talent that no one could ignore. Teachers, students, and parents alike would remember this performance for a long time. They had witnessed something special, a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary gifts are hidden in the most unexpected places. And for the girl, this was only the beginning of a journey that would continue to unfold through her music, touching hearts and changing lives in ways that no one could have anticipated. As the first note resonated through the auditorium, a profound silence fell over the crowd. It was as if the room itself had paused to listen. The sound was rich and clear, carrying an emotion that touched everyone in its path. Teachers who had laughed moments before now sat frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. Students who had been whispering and snickering moments ago were now completely still, unable to look away. Parents leaned forward, captivated by the unexpected depth and beauty of the music. The quiet girl had transformed the atmosphere with a single note, and the audience could feel the weight of her talent. Her fingers moved with confidence and grace, striking chords and gliding across the keys in a way that was both precise and fluid. The piece she played was intricate, full of emotion and subtle dynamics that revealed a level of mastery that no one had anticipated. Every note told a story, every pause seemed intentional, and every crescendo built anticipation in the hearts of the listeners. The audience felt as though they were being carried along a journey, each sound connecting them to the girl's inner world, to the countless hours she had spent perfecting her art in secret. Some teachers exchanged quick, astonished glances. They whispered softly to one another, acknowledging that they had been completely wrong about her abilities. They had assumed she was timid and ordinary, a student who would fade into the background. Now, they were witnessing a performance that was extraordinary, one that demanded respect and admiration. Even the most skeptical students were captivated, their earlier doubts fading as the music washed over them. It was impossible to remain indifferent to the beauty and emotion of her playing. Backstage, other performers watched in awe. They had prepared for the showcase, but they could not compete with the sheer power of her talent. Some whispered to one another, amazed at how someone so quiet and unassuming could hold the entire auditorium in their spell. Others felt a quiet envy, not for her success, but for the purity and intensity with which she expressed herself. There was no showmanship, no attempt to impress, just music, honest and true, pouring directly from her heart. The audience was fully absorbed. Students leaned forward in their seats, some with wide eyes, some with hands pressed to their faces in astonishment. Parents felt a wave of emotion, realizing that they were witnessing a rare talent that had been hidden in plain sight. The auditorium seemed to vibrate with the resonance of the piano, each note striking a chord within the hearts of those listening. The energy was palpable, a shared experience of awe and wonder that connected everyone in the room. The girl did not play for the applause or recognition. She played for the music itself. Her focus was absolute, her attention entirely on the piano. Every finger movement, every subtle shift in tone, was intentional. She was fully immersed, lost in the sound and the emotion of the piece. The audience could sense her dedication, her love for the music, and it resonated deeply. There was a sincerity in her performance that could not be taught, something innate and profound that left a lasting impression on everyone present. As the performance progressed, the piece grew more complex, weaving intricate melodies and harmonies that flowed seamlessly. The music was alive, dynamic, and expressive, filled with emotion that seemed to transcend the room itself. Listeners were transported, feeling the highs and lows, the tension and release, as if they were experiencing the story behind the notes. The girl's talent was undeniable, her control and emotional depth apparent in every movement of her hands. Teachers and students alike were caught in the spell, unable to look away or interrupt the flow of the music. The janitor, who had seen her practice countless times in the empty auditorium, watched from a distance with a quiet smile. He had known she was talented, but even he could not have imagined the effect she would have on an audience. Her skill, combined with her focus and passion, created a performance that was unforgettable. He felt a deep sense of pride, having witnessed her dedication in silence, and now seeing it recognized by the entire school. The piece reached its climax, a section filled with rapid, intricate notes that demanded both technical skill and emotional intensity. The audience was on the edge of their seats, completely absorbed in the performance. Teachers leaned forward, some holding their breath, as they realized that they were witnessing something truly exceptional. Students who had doubted her earlier now sat in stunned silence, marveling at the beauty and power of her playing. Even those who had come with casual curiosity were now fully engaged, caught up in the emotion and skill displayed on stage. As the final notes approached, the music softened, slowing to a gentle, lingering finish. The girl's fingers glided across the keys one last time, each sound resonating with clarity and emotion. The room remained quiet for a heartbeat, as if the audience did not want to break the magic that had been created. Then, slowly, the applause began, building from polite claps to a full, enthusiastic ovation. Teachers stood, clapping with admiration and surprise. Students cheered, some with tears in their eyes, as they realized the quiet girl had completely changed their perception of her. Parents clapped loudly, proud and amazed by the performance they had witnessed. The girl rose from the piano bench, a quiet smile on her face. She did not speak, for words were unnecessary. The music had conveyed everything she wished to express. Backstage, performers and students alike congratulated her, some in awe, some with genuine admiration. She accepted their praise humbly, her satisfaction coming not from the applause, but from the knowledge that she had shared her music fully and honestly. The impact of her performance was immediate and lasting. Teachers who had underestimated her now recognized her talent and dedication. Students who had doubted her now admired and respected her. The quiet girl who had always been overlooked had revealed a gift that could not be ignored. The auditorium, once filled with chatter and laughter, had been transformed by the power of her music, leaving everyone in awe of what they had just witnessed. The moment was more than just a performance. It was a revelation. The audience realized that talent could be hidden in the most unexpected places, and that appearances could be deceiving. The girl had taken a chance, stepped into the light, and shown the world a side of herself that few had ever seen. Her courage, dedication, and talent had left a mark on everyone present, a reminder that greatness can emerge quietly, without fanfare, and still touch the hearts of many. As she left the stage and walked backstage, there was a sense of fulfillment in her step. She had faced the challenge, shared her gift, and done so with authenticity and grace. The applause continued, echoing in the auditorium, but it was the quiet acknowledgement of her talent that mattered most. She had proven, without words, that true skill and passion cannot be measured by appearances or assumptions. In that moment, she had changed the way everyone in the room thought about her, and her music had spoken louder than anything they could have imagined. The applause continued to echo through the auditorium, but the girl remained calm, letting it wash over her without letting it distract from the feeling. She had carried through the music. She had given herself fully to the performance, and now that it was over, there was a quiet satisfaction that no amount of applause could replace. Teachers who had once chuckled now approached her with respect and admiration, some still shaking their heads in disbelief. Students crowded around, eager to express their amazement, their previous doubts now replaced by awe and curiosity. The music teacher who had first encouraged her approached quietly, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and amazement. She placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, speaking softly, telling her that she had surpassed every expectation. It was a moment of quiet recognition, an acknowledgement that went beyond words. The girl nodded, feeling a sense of connection with the teacher, a shared understanding that the journey to this moment had been long and personal, and now it had reached its beautiful culmination. As the other students performed, the memory of her music lingered in the minds of everyone present. Her performance had set a standard, not one of competition, but of inspiration. Classmates whispered about the incredible depth of emotion she had expressed, the precision of her playing, and the unexpected power of her presence on stage. Teachers spoke quietly to each other, reflecting on their initial assumptions and realizing that they had underestimated not only her skill but also her courage. They had witnessed something extraordinary, and it had left a mark on their understanding of talent and perseverance. Parents who had been in the audience shared their own astonishment, some commenting on the raw emotion in her playing, others marveling at the technical skill she displayed. Many admitted that they had been completely unaware of her musical abilities before that day. Conversations buzzed with admiration and surprise as the audience members processed what they had just experienced. The girl had transformed the evening into something unforgettable, showing that true talent often resides where it is least expected. Even the janitor, who had silently watched her practice over the months, felt a deep sense of pride. He had known she was capable of great things, but witnessing her share her gift in front of the entire school was moving in a way that words could not capture. It was not just the music itself, but the courage and commitment behind it that made the moment so special. He quietly congratulated himself for having been a silent witness to her dedication, knowing that the performance was the natural result of years of quiet persistence. In the days following the talent showcase, the atmosphere at school shifted. Teachers who had once overlooked her began to pay more attention, seeking to understand the depth of her abilities. They offered guidance, encouragement, and sometimes even asked her to perform again at school events. The students, too, began to treat her differently. She was no longer just the quiet girl in the corner. She was a source of inspiration, someone whose dedication and talent could not be ignored. The respect she had earned was genuine, rooted in the undeniable demonstration of skill and emotion she had shared on stage. She did not seek fame or attention. Her satisfaction came from the act of performing itself, from the ability to express something that had lived inside her for years. Yet, she could not ignore the effect her performance had on others. Teachers, students, and parents all seemed to carry a new awareness of her presence, a recognition that true talent could not be hidden forever. The quiet girl who had once been underestimated had revealed a side of herself that no one could forget, leaving an impression that would last far beyond that single evening. Her journey continued quietly. She returned to her practice sessions in the auditorium, her focus unchanged. She did not play to impress or to seek validation. She played because the piano was a part of her, a medium through which she could communicate her emotions and her inner world. Yet, there was a newfound confidence in her posture, a calm certainty in her movements. The applause and admiration had reinforced what she had always known, that dedication, passion, and authenticity could create moments of real impact. Other students began to show interest in learning music more seriously, inspired by the example she had set. Some approached her, asking questions about technique, practice habits, and how she had developed such a deep connection with the piano. She responded with quiet patience, sharing her knowledge and encouraging others to find their own voice in music. Her influence extended beyond her performance, shaping a culture of dedication and curiosity in the music room that had not existed before. Teachers also found themselves reflecting on the lesson she had provided. They realized that assumptions about quiet or shy students could often be misleading. Talent, they learned, did not always announce itself loudly. Some of the most remarkable abilities could be found in students who were reserved, unassuming, and overlooked. They began to watch more closely, listen more carefully, and encourage all students to explore their potential. Regardless of appearances or preconceived notions, the girl herself remained grounded. She continued to practice with the same dedication as before, finding joy in the music, not in the recognition. The experience had shown her that her quiet persistence and her love for the piano could create change, inspire others, and break through the expectations of those around her. It was a powerful lesson, one that affirmed the value of commitment and authenticity in pursuing one's passion. Over time, her story spread throughout the school and even to the wider community. People spoke of the quiet girl who had silenced a room with a single note, who had transformed doubt into admiration, and who had shown that true talent could not be measured by appearances. Invitations to perform at school events, local concerts, and community gatherings began to arrive, each one an acknowledgement of her extraordinary ability and the emotional depth of her performances. Yet, she accepted them with humility, always remembering that her music was a reflection of her heart, not just a display of skill. The impact of her performance continued to influence those around her. Students found courage to pursue their own passions. Teachers became more attentive to the hidden potential in their classrooms, and parents realized the importance of nurturing and supporting talent in all its forms. The quiet girl had become a symbol of dedication, courage, and the transformative power of music, demonstrating that when someone is willing to put in the effort and express themselves authentically, the results can be both profound and inspiring. In the end, the talent showcase became a defining moment for everyone involved. The quiet girl, once overlooked, had shown that patience, practice, and authenticity could create a performance that resonated deeply with all who witnessed it. She had changed the way people viewed her, and in doing so, she had reminded everyone that talent often lies hidden, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Her story became one of hope, inspiration, and the quiet power of perseverance, leaving a lasting impression on the hearts and minds of those who had the privilege of hearing her play.